Very good. So, hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Gianluca Di Bella, and I'm Sales VP at EBSCO. And I wanted to thank you all for attending today's webinar on global health, which provides unparalleled access to the latest public health research outputs. We have a very engaging session today. So before we begin, I would like to give you some information about the session, just to make sure that it goes smooth. The session, as you heard probably, is going to be recorded, and all attendee lines have been muted to avoid any sound feedback or interruptions. And if you're having some technical problems during the webinar, you can use the chat to describe what the problem is all about, and we will try to fix it. With regards to questions for the presenters, please feel free to enter questions into the chat box at any time, and we will make sure that those questions will be answered at the end of each presentation. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce today's host. We have Isabel Hoskins. I hope that I'm pronouncing last names properly. She's content manager for global health at CABI. Daniel Lungu, regional sales manager at CABI, Central and Eastern Europe. Neil McDonald, Senior Sales Manager at CABI for Europe and South Asia. Alicia Poggio, Training Specialist at EBSCO for Latin Europe and Israel. And today, as I said before, the webinar is going to be about global health. This is a database produced by CABI that gives unparalleled access to the latest infectious disease research outputs on a global level. We will discuss content coverage, thesaurus, process for systematic reviews, as well as how indexing and subject terms are added. The webinar will include also a demonstration on the EBSCOhost platform. So in order to give you some tips and try to give you like some insight on how to use the resource at best. I think that the first person to speak is going to be Neil, right?
Thank you.
Okay, so Neil, over to you.
Thank you. So I think, Alicia, are you going to pull up the presentation that we can run through that was there before, or should I put it up for CABI?
I think I was going to share it.
Okay, great. So I will speak for a few minutes just for those of you who are familiar with CABI and what we do as an organisation and our mission. And then I will hand over to Daniel Lungu to speak about some content from a database. And then Isabel, being the subject matter expert, will explain the technicalities to support institutes, universities and the government in terms of getting the best from a database. So essentially, for those of you who are not familiar or aware of CABI, we are a not-for-profit intergovernmental organisation, and we apply our scientific expertise to solve problems within the agriculture and the environment. So myself and Daniel and Isabel work within the knowledge business part of CABI. Isabel, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So yeah, this is a short summary of CABI and essentially what we do. We're a global organisation with offices and locations all around the world. So essentially, the publishing and knowledge business side of the organisation, in which Isabel, Daniel and myself occupy, work very closely with the publishing resources. And then we have our international development arm of CABI that do a lot of work with key donor funders. So we have a lot of projects in the developing world. So we have our offices strategically placed. So in Kenya, we do a lot of work with our government-funded PlantWise program, which essentially rolls out plant training to smallholder farmers. Whereas, in Europe, we would, if we have an issue with health, we would go to our local GP, whereas the principle is exactly the same with Plantwise. And we have now secured additional funding to continue a Plantwise Plus program for the next number of years, which is great. And again, Isabel, next slide, please. Thank you. And again, as I mentioned, we have a very strong history within publishing, within the science, technical and medical area. And in addition to the global health database that we'll discuss today, we have various other resources, such as CAB abstracts, which is a database encompassing the life sciences. And we also have many other online full text resources, all of which will be available via EBSCO, who are conducting this webinar in tandem with CABI today. And an important factor for all of the participants to be aware of is that we are a not-for-profit, and a substantial amount of the money that is spent with our publishing resources is reinvested into our project and international development work. Thank you, Isabel. Next slide. And again, this touches more upon the international development arm of the organisation, which I mentioned, again, which is clearly important. And we have over 200 people in the organisation who occupy this arm of CABI. Next slide, Isabel, please. And again, just to position, here is where a lot of our offices are based globally. So in Switzerland, for example, we're conducting a lot of research within invasive species. In India, again, we do a lot of our kind of plant-wise work in South Asia. So, for example, we work very closely in Bangladesh with places like the FAO and the Ministry of Agriculture, which is similar and linked to a lot of our other global offices. Do the next slide, please, Isabel. So I'm going to hand over to Daniel Lungu now, who will present 4 to 5 slides positioning the content within our global health database. So thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Daniel Lungu, and as Gianluca mentioned before, I cover Central and Eastern Europe. I'm dealing with the sales part and also the publishing part of CABI in this area. And as you all know, we are experiencing very interesting times in this period. And with the recent spread of COVID-19, a pandemic that has caused a global shutdown, economical shutdown, and thousands of hospitalization, and unfortunately a lot of deaths, public health is more relevant and critical than ever. If we are talking as general about public health, we should mention its essentials functions like monitor health status to identify and solve community health problem, inform, educate, and empower people about health issues in specific areas, and diagnose and investigate health problems and health hazards in the community. All these aspects and much more can be found in the content that is provided by Global Health. Global Health is one of our main flagship databases. It gives researchers unparalleled access to the world's public health research and practice. If we are talking about the content, we are offering to the end users more than 4.2 million records from 1910 till present day. This means that the end users, the researcher can have access to more than 100 years of research on academic content that is provided by Global Health. From this point to 4.2 million records, 1,200 are in full text. If we are talking about full text, indeed, I have to make a remark here. We are offering content from the journals as many other databases, but also we are offering content from conference proceedings, reports, and which are so-called the green literature, which are very, very demanded as well among the researcher. Another important aspect is the international coverage. We are offering content from more than 100 countries, from books, reports, journals, and also if another important aspect of global health is the unique content. 54% of the journals are not indexed in PubMed, and also 70% of them are not indexed in Medline or Embase. Another important aspect of global health, another important tool that is given by our platform is the CABI thesaurus. It's a controlled vocabulary. I will give you more information about in the next slides about information that can be available in our controlled vocabulary called CABI thesaurus. Isabel, the next slide, please. If we are talking about the coverage, you can see in this slide the number of records which are in the left part of this slide, and also the number of full text which are in the right part of our main areas of content available in global health. As you noticed, we are covering areas like nutrition, biological sciences, and chronic diseases. In the next slide, please, Isabel, for a more in-depth of the coverage that we are presenting or offering in global health, you can see that we are covering more areas like health education, health services, toxicology, all the aspects of nutrition, bioterrorism, and biomedical life sciences. The next slide, please, Isabel. As I mentioned 3 slides back, we are offering, besides the access to global health, access to our vocabulary, which is called CAB thesaurus. CAB thesaurus is an essential search tool that gives access to more than 3 million terms with specific terminology for all subjects covered with regularly which gives you also regularly updates. The indexing terms include specialist subject term, organism, concepts, role terms, and countries and regions. And if you please give the next slide, Isabel. If we are talking about the CABI codes that are in public health area, we should mention that you can find information about the human health, nutrition and food science, disease and disorders, and organism. And also, which is very important about the CABI codes, is that they are offer a narrow area of topics within the subject area. So, for example, if you are looking in human health and hygiene, we can go from this to human nutrition and from this to diet studies. So all these vocabulary are going like a tree in more in-depth areas of our CABI codes. As I mentioned, the next slide, please, Isabel. As I mentioned before, we are offering access to content that is from more than 100 countries. Here you can see representation of the countries of the areas which provides content to our database. We have content from Europe to North America, from Australia, New Zealand to Far East Asia, which confirms the fact that we are covering all the aspects of public health in the world. We are not focusing only, let's say, on European market or North American market. We are covering all the content that covers public health issues in from all over the world. Isabel, that was my part. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And so I'm going to talk about what global health can do for people looking at making evidence-based decisions. And then I will be discussing how we select records, how we add coding and indexing, and I will illustrate that with some hot topics. So to begin with, why would you want to use this for systematic reviews and things? We have over 50,000 randomized controlled trials records in global health. And these are the gold standard for doing a systematic review. Those are the studies that systematic reviews are based on, usually. We also have over 60,000 records for systematic reviews themselves. We also, as Daniel explained, have non-journal literature provided by leading organisations in the field, such as the World Health Organization, the European Centre for Disease Control, and the American Centers for Disease Control. And these institutions provide reports, statistical summaries, updates on diseases, analysis, which is all important. How do we, next slide. Records. We have 2 stages in our selection. We monitor publishers for new titles to add to a panel of approved journals. And these are approved on the basis of a selection of quality criteria and the subject that the journal covers. And then when a journal is on that panel, each time a new issue is published, we would select the relevant content for the database based on a set of written guidelines. Many titles are covered in their entirety. Well, the journals of public health, we would do everything from them. Other journals, we would select the relevant content for global health. So this enables us to have a wide range of journals from social sciences, economics, veterinary sciences that contribute the unique content that you will not find on other medical databases. We've chosen a record to be indexed. We would add between 1 and 5 CABI codes to it. Oops. This is just an example of several of the codes. So in social sciences, we have a code for health services. For food science, we have a code for food safety. And in economics, we have a code for health economics. Indexing terms. We use the thesaurus that Daniel has mentioned, and we can add other keywords if needed. So that gives us flexibility to cover new subjects immediately that they occur in the literature. We can add up to 20 indexing terms. The thesaurus itself has, we consult many authorities to add a new term, and I've listed 2, which are the authorities for names for viruses and for bacteria. But there are many more. And we also draw on our own scientists and editors like myself who are monitoring the world literature. The thesaurus is updated quarterly. Recently, we've made the links between diseases and vectors and diseases and the causative organisms. And of course, we've added terms about COVID-19. This is a list of the kind of concepts that we would add an indexing term for. So the pathogen or disease, the group affected, as in what set of people, the location of the study, if it's epidemiological, and study design, is it a randomized controlled trial? Aspects of what the study is looking at, is it about diagnosis or treatment? Any drugs, vaccines, foods and nutrients would all be indexed. Now I'm going to look at some hot topics and illustrate some of the available terms in the thesaurus and the CABI codes which can be used. So, zoonoses. These are diseases that cross from animals to man. COVID-19, as you probably know, is thought to have come from bats via another host. But there are many other examples. Influenza comes from birds or pigs. Ebola virus comes from bats. Neglected tropical diseases are often shared with animals, and there are foodborne pathogens which can come from livestock and pass through the food chain to people. As I think most of you are probably aware, it's important for global health security and preventing future pandemics to monitor, study and control animal diseases that could shift to humans. The thesaurus terms that we would add, we would include the term zoonoses when a paper the jump of a virus or bacterium from animals to man. There's also the term respiratory hosts to describe animal hosts of a disease that could jump to man. There are 2 CABI codes, one for animal pathogens and one for human pathogens. Antibiotic resistance. Almost as soon as antibiotics were discovered, we had antibiotic resistance. And these days, the pipeline for new antibiotics is quite sparse. So there's the concept of stewardship, which is to make sure that the use of antibiotics are controlled. So we would, doctors would limit the number of prescriptions. They would make sure that people adhere to treatment. They would, in general, the use of antibiotics in livestock is discouraged because they can be used as growth promoters. And lastly, stopping infections occurring in the first place is useful for this. The thesaurus terms we use the terms drug resistance and drug resistance rather than antibiotic resistance. So that's one to remember. This allows us to encompass drugs which are not strictly antibiotics, but which are antibacterial. Other terms that will be useful might be antibacterial agents, which would cover antibiotics and those other drugs. And we have a code for drug resistance. Vaccine hesitancy. This is the idea that people might refuse or decline to have a vaccination because they don't believe that it will work, or they believe it might have a bad effect on them. It gathered momentum after the publication many years ago now of a study that linked the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine to autism in children. That study was eventually discredited, but some people believed that it was still true. The use of social media and fake news has amplified this problem with anti-vaccine beliefs. For COVID, it's interesting. There are 2 things, really. The fear of catching COVID has actually stopped people attending health clinics for their routine vaccinations, which has had an impact on general immunity for other diseases. And of course, people are concerned about the vaccines which are coming out for COVID because they're being rushed out for obvious reasons, but then people may not have confidence that they've had the proper approval. So that's another kind of hesitancy. The thesaurus terms, we have vaccination and immunization, and then terms about various kinds of vaccines, and then how people feel about things, so beliefs and attitudes, and then their level of knowledge, health education knowledge. And there are 2 CABI codes, one to do with vaccination, which is the HH600, and one to do with the social aspects. Health inequalities is another topic that has come more into prominence with the COVID pandemic. Even in Europe, a relatively developed, wealthy place, there are disparities in health. Socio-economic position will affect your level of health. Your ethnicity, the language you speak compared to your host country where you live, and your education can all affect your health status. The terms we have here are health inequalities, social inequalities. There's a term for socioeconomic status, and then lots of different descriptions of the kind of reason why you might have a health inequality. And we have a social CABI code. This is the last hot topic I'm going to discuss, air pollution and health. Again, this has some relevance to COVID because air pollution and air quality have an effect on respiratory diseases and cardiovascular diseases. and it's thought that might make the disease worse, might make COVID worse, I mean COVID-19. And in general, high air pollution will link to infant mortality and actually reduce life expectancy if you always live in a polluted place. The terms, in cities, the main pollutants come from traffic. So there's fine dust particles, and there's also nitrogen dioxide generated from traffic. In terms of other places, wildfires are a reason for air pollution to occur, and we're seeing increased numbers of wildfires because of climate change. So the terms that we have here, air pollution, air quality, nitrogen dioxide, and for the fine particles, particulate matter. The coding, we have environmental health, and we have pollution and degradation. So that's now the end of the slides. So I'll unshare, I think, if I can find out how to do it. And then Alicia will go on and do some demonstrations around these subjects. So if I hand.
So thank you. I'm going to share my screen and to demo global health on EBSCOhost platform, and I will work on the topic that Isabel Hoskins has just showed. So okay, you should be able to see my screen on yours, and we are here on EBSCOhost platform, and we are going to perform some searches on global health. So I would like to show you some tips, some way to use the thesaurus and also the indexes available through global health, and also to use the CABI codes available. So the first search I will run is related to zoonoses. And I will start going to the thesaurus, so the CABI thesaurus that it's available on the left side of the screen. If I click on top of this tab, I will get directly access to the CABI thesaurus. And from here, I could choose, I could type the term I would like to search. And I will search for zoonoses. Instead of E, I will add an I, just to show you how the thesaurus could help us also to find out the control term that CABI specialists added to the record. The thesaurus will suggest us the term to use instead of zoonosis with an I. It will suggest us to use the E and the right subject term. If I click on top of this term, and then again, I will have the chance to open it and to check the structure of the term. So I will get the definition of the term. I will see the structure, the tree structure in which it's included, and I could also get access to the related terms. The thesaurus provides us also with the date in which the year in which the title has the index terms has been added in the thesaurus. So it has been from 1983 used to index the record. And you could see also that there is an entity class, a classification added every term of the thesaurus. If I would like to search inside the subject terms of the record, it's easy. It's enough to click and select the term, and then click on top of Add button and add it to the search box. Now, to run a search in the database, it's enough to click on Search. And then I could refine this large number of results in many ways. I could combine more terms coming from the thesaurus, but I could also use the fields available in the research page and in the search box. So you could have also a view of the granularity and the many fields that are used to index record. Before refining this search using another term, I would like also to show you another thing. So during the presentation about global health, Daniel talked about the fact that inside global health you get also access to full text article. To access the full text article is enough to click on top of the record. There are more than 100,000 full text available, and you will find them here. So the link that led to the full text available directly on Global Health is accessible from here. So if I click on top of this, I could get access to the full text. So it's loading the full text of the article. I go back just to refine the search. So if I want to refine using the unqualified search, for example, about, food safety, I could add the second term, and thanks to the many search fields, I could refine my search. Then, if I would like to work on a specific publication date and restrict the data available about a specific subject or about a specific geographic location, I could work with the filter available on the left side of the screen. I go back to the main page, so I click on New Search just to clean the search boxes. And I would like also to show you how we could open the terms available inside the thesaurus and how we could create a strategy that allows us to get results focused on social aspects of health. So I'm going to go back to the thesaurus, and in this case I'm going to search for vaccine. So as you can see, in this case we have two boxes. So we could directly select the term and run a search from here, and we have another box that is available on the right side of the screen. This second box is telling us that this term is part of a structure in which there are more specific terms related to vaccines. So the tree of vaccine includes narrower terms, more specific narrower terms. So here we could see the family from which vaccine is coming from, materials. So we could see the narrower terms. So you could see the granularity of the thesaurus. You could see the related term and the entity class. If I would like to pick not only vaccine, but to expand the search, including also the narrower term, it's easy because I could click on top of explode, and clicking on head, I will add in the search box above not only the subject index term, but also all the subject index terms included inside vaccines. I could run my search, and since I would like, we talk about hesitancies, so we talk about conflict about this subject, so I could cross-search the previous one adding, for example, a string related to hesitancy or refusal or decline or opposition. And then I could use a CABI code. So I could use the code UU485 that is related to the social aspect, social anthropology. If I run this search, I could get results that are focused on these specific aspects. So you could easily see that inside the bibliographic record, you get the abstracts, you have the subject subset, the subject terms, and the geographic location term, the organism term. You got the brother term and the CABI code. So here you could see that there is this brand new social psychology and social anthropology CABI code added last March 2000. Oh, sorry, added in 2000, sorry. And again, the link to the full text that we saw before, just below the bibliographic record information in the result list, is also accessible inside the record. I go back and I would like to show you also a search using the indexes, because there is also this search path available. To get access to the indexes, you need to move to the indexes tab on the left side of the screen. If you click on top of indexes, you got the chance to choose which index you would like to browse. And here you could see the variety of fields that we could search for. We have the CABI codes, the case registry number. We have the chance to get access to all the subjects, and we could also decide to work with descriptors, with geographic subject, and with organism. I will go for all subject, and we run a search for COVID. The search will be run in alphabetical order, so I could get access to all the occurrences of COVID and select them from here. If the aim of my search is to find out if there are results related to COVID-19 and, for example, particulate matter, so an environmental topic, I could combine this search. I could easily add the subject inside the search field. And again, from here, I could add a further search. A further term, particulate matter, and get access to results that are related to COVID-19, but also to particulate matter. I could click on top of the first result, and you could see that these results will give us the chance to launch other searches for the same author, provide us with the address of the author, so the affiliation the source, the abstract, the subject, subset, so we are talking about public health, and the descriptors, the broader term, the identifier, and the CABI codes related to these specific topics. I go back to the result list just to let you know that you could always decide to browse the result and to show the result in a different way, for example, using date newest. And you could, with share, then manage the result you need with just one click, moving them inside the folder, or you could also create alerts in order to receive updated information about new contents added to Global Health related to this specific topic. And as last detail, the full text available inside Global Health could be completed by other full text that could come from holdings of an institution on the same platform. So in some cases, your experience could be completed by full text coming from other resources available in your institution on EBSCOhost platform. And the platform is fully compliant, open URL compliant. So tools like Link Resolver could complete also the variety of full text already accessible thanks to Global Health for direct linking. Last tip, I would like to remember that every time you have access to a resource about Global Health or also CABI abstracts, the help on the right side of the screen allow you to access to the guide about EBSCOhost platform, but at the end of this left column, you will always find a specific guide to search the database, so in this case, Global Health, and also for CABI abstracts. I will stop sharing my screen, and if there are any questions, they are welcome.
Thank you, Alicia. Let's see. I don't see any questions in the chat box yet. So let's wait if there is any participant that want to ask any question to any of the panelists. Wait a couple of minutes. Yeah, just to make the process smoother, if any participant has any question, please put in the chat box. All right, I don't see any question coming, so I think that I would like to thank all the panelists, Isabel, Daniel, Neil, and Alicia for their presentations. And I hope that participants enjoyed this engaging session. And we hope to see you soon on another webinar. Thank you very much and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.